From Reddit. What is your most disturbing, scary, or creepy real story? Story 1. A few years ago, I was walking through the woods of a beaten track, and I smelled this really overpowering sweet smell. I pulled back the undergrowth to have a look and found a dead body. The guy had clearly been there a while and wasn't looking great, all swollen green and black, with various animal bites. I called the police, who told me to wait with the body until they arrived. Being in the middle of nowhere, it took a while for them to arrive, and I just sat there with him for a long time. It turned out he had committed suicide. For a long time afterwards, I had dreams about him, and he would talk to me, and not nicely. Mainly about how he was angry I had disturbed his resting place, and about how he wanted to kill himself. Probably just my imagination. All pretty disturbing at the time. He still turns up in my dreams, from time to time, and no doubt will be there tonight after typing this. Story 2. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion, pretty late at night. The drive was about 2 hours. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The real creepy ones you see in a lot of movies. Anyways, I had been driving about 45 minutes, and I was starting to get really tired. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't see any place safe I could park and sleep. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to park, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road, to the grass behind some bushes, to try and hide my car from anybody else who was going to come past. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 p.m. and then fell asleep. Sometime later, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock, 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out, because the sound didn't stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was a dang hook killer. You know the one. He scratched the couple's car and then slaughtered the guy who went out to investigate. Fuck that, I thought to myself. So I got the heck out of there. As I drove off, I see there was a car parked off to the side of the road with the driver's side door open. I slowed down just to see if anyone was there, and there wasn't. Then I looked into my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything, and all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, shouting stuff like, "Hey, hey, hey you! Get the heck out of the car, now!" I panicked and sped off, and I never saw that guy again. Moral of the story? Don't sleep on the side of a deserted road. Story 3. A few summers ago, I went for a bike ride around midnight with a friend. We went our separate ways, and at the end of the evening I had to go back home, which was 2 blocks away. Because of construction, I had to ride on the sidewalk, but the streets were empty. But it wasn't a problem until right where I was about to turn left, there was this man walking by himself. He probably was around his 40s. A little scruffy, but not homeless. The sidewalk was narrow, and I didn't want to scare him off, so when I got behind him, I said, "Hey, behind you!" And he turned around and gave me this super angry look. As I'm getting close to my street, I start hearing him yelling at me. I looked back and he started to follow me, saying he was about to harm me and that I was a horrible person. I lived right off the corner and I didn't want him to figure out where I lived, so I decided to do another loop around the block. That's not the scary part. The scary part is that when I looped back around and looked down the street, I saw him standing on my front door, staring out the street like he knew where I lived. He saw me ride by again and again, but he didn't say anything. I ended up going back to my friends. 2 days later, my bike got stolen from the alleyway by the house. Story 4. I had awesome parents who let me sleep in the living room on weekend nights when I was young. I would always end up sleeping on the couch because naked night made me tired. So one night, I wake up to a prickly feeling. I bolted into a sitting position and stared out the front window. We live in rural Georgia, so you can imagine the magnitude of trees. In a perfect light, casted from the moon, I see a silhouette of someone in the trees. The family dog dashes to the window and is snarling into the glass. Terrified, I ran to my parents' room and tried to explain to my parents that there was a strange person outside. My dad grabbed the weapon and quickly went outside with the dogs. I trembled in my mom's arms until Dad comes home, says he saw no one, and that I could go to bed. I decided to sleep in my room that night. In the morning, my dad is making rounds in the house with a cup of coffee, when suddenly, I look out the window and notice the man outside. He gives me a shut signal and runs away. That day, I swear I couldn't stop crying for what felt like hours. Story 5. One time, I was left alone in the house while the rest of my family was on vacation. I decided I would get smashed. Later that night, I just passed out on the couch of the living room. About around 9, I woke up, but I realized I was too scared to go back to my room. The couch I was laying on was right underneath these big windows. I woke up suddenly, not knowing why. I had a severe case of the chills, and I could not figure out why. Then a banging started. It came from right above me. I did not move, but I opened my eyes and looked up at the window. Someone was standing there, pounding on the glass. Without moving, I looked at the cable box. It was around 3 in the morning, and the banging kept going. Then it suddenly stopped, but I still did not move. Suddenly, it starts again, coming from 2 different directions now. Someone was banging on the window, and another person was banging on the door. They kept going, not going away. Finally, after about 40 minutes, they quit. It was the most terrifying event I could recall at the moment. It made me a nervous wreck. After that, I called a friend the next day to see if they would come over and stay for the rest of the week. His response was, "What the heck for? So we can both get murdered in our sleep? Thanks a lot, you jerk." Story 6. I was 17, and I had just gotten my license. Back in high school, my friends and I had made it a mission to find abandoned houses to throw parties in. We had a few good candidates, but the motherlode was this house I would pass on my way home from work. It was an underdeveloped shell of a huge home with a large property in the back. I had told one of my friends about it, and one day before we went to see a movie, I took him to the house. It was about dusk in summer, so I had my headlights on. I pulled into the front of the house, and we were there for like 10 seconds tops before we pulled back to go to the main road. A minute later, a big truck pulls up behind us with its high beams on and riding our ass. My friend and I took note of this, but paid no mind as we headed back to the main road. At the light, I turned right, but the truck cuts through the gas station at the corner and blocked us off. Out of the truck comes this big hulk of a man, and my friend and I began shitting our pants. He stands by our window, and I roll it down. Now, this is the really freaky part. This is a busy road, and now there was no one in sight. He asked us what we were doing at the house, and I quickly lied, and said we were making a U-turn. He stares at us for a few seconds, smiles, and sends us on our way. To this day, the house remains unfinished, and I'm convinced it's a drug operation of some sorts. Story 7. This happened to me last summer, when I was back at my parents' house during the holidays. It was around 3 a.m., and I was in my room on my computer when I suddenly got a call from my sister. Now, that was a little bit weird, since my sister's room is just down the hallway, and she could just walk by into my room. I went to pick up the call, and it ended as soon as I reached the phone. I figured that she wanted to speak with me, so I got up and went to her room. As soon as I reached her door, she started screaming that someone was in the room with her. I busted in, of course there was no one there. After she stopped crying, she told me that she woke up and saw a dark shadow centimeters from her face, and that's when she screamed. I told her that she called me, and she tells that her phone is not even in her room. Sure enough, her phone was actually downstairs by her purse. The weird part is that the log of her call on my phone was still there. I never managed to explain all this. Story 8. My grandmother swore by this story till her dying day. It was during the war in London. She was bombed out of her house and was staying with a friend. The friend had sent her up in a room on the top floor. Anyway, she was taking my dad upstairs to bed when a figure materialized on the stairs, telling her not to sleep. She went back downstairs and told her friend that she and my dad would prefer sleeping in the living room that night. Her friend was annoyed but agreed. That night, a bomb exploded near the house and the roof caved in, right on top of my dad's cot. He would have been killed. Story 9. When I was about 7, my 2 brothers and I were playing in an area that was used for unofficial motocross. We decided to dig a tunnel for some reason, being the extra smart guys we were. It took a few hours to dig about 6 feet in and 2 feet high. I was right up in the face when suddenly the tunnel collapsed. It was all dirt with no supports. My world went instantly black and hot. By hot I mean furnace hot. I couldn't move a muscle from the weight of the soil completely enclosing me. I started to really panic. Everything started turning red, which I guess was blood being forced into my head. Every breath was getting harder as the soil contained me more and more. Even though my hands were near my face, I couldn't move my arms to clear the dirt around my head, and also started breathing in dirt, which made me cough, which made me contract my stomach, and then I couldn't draw breath at all. This isn't what made me panic though. The total darkness, turning red with the incredible heat, made my young mind think I was going to hell. I don't know how long I was buried for, but it seemed like an eternity. Suddenly, I felt something grab one of my feet. My brothers had been frantically digging through the collapse to pull me out and managed to reach me and then pull me out. I never told my parents. I just went home and got a hose down. Thank you for listening to all these scary stories. If you found them spine-tingling, please give this video a like and subscribe for more hair-raising tales. If you're looking for more captivating and amusing stories, make sure to explore the other videos on the screen. Thank you again for tuning in, and until next time, stay safe and keep those lights on.